Hey guys, Kate Sparks here. I thought we would take a few minutes today, in spite of the fact that this is a very busy time of year, to answer a reader question. I'm going to try to keep it brief. This is a really busy time for a lot of us. In fact, the reason that we are filming in front of my Christmas tree is not because it's pretty, although I think it is. It's because my office right now is full of Christmas stuff. It's kind of gift central and there are a lot of gifts in there. Wrapped gifts, not wrapped gifts, and I should really be working on that right now, or possibly reading through my draft of Sanctuary to prepare for revisions next month, or possibly doing some alpha reading for a wonderful author who I am so lucky to be associated with and reading her stories. Or I should be cleaning my house. But you know what? We haven't hung out in a while. So I've got my coffee here in my jolly little Christmas sweater mug. And I have a question to answer. This one was from Kelly, who is in my Street Team group on Facebook. And she asked, how do you take an idea and turn it into a story? Which is a wonderful question, and I suspect that you could ask 10 authors that question and get 10 different answers. My answer could be really long and complicated because for me, it does tend to be a long and complicated process. I am not the kind of author who can have an idea and either outline it or just write it and have it be exactly what I want it. It takes a while. So very briefly, I probably should have prepared better for this video and made notes and stuff. Just off the top of my head. Okay, we're not going to talk about where ideas come from because that is a whole separate topic. But say you have an idea and you think it's going to make a great book. Obviously, the idea is not enough. If you just have an idea for a concept and you think, hey, this would make a really cool story, you're probably not going to be able to stretch that out into a novel with good pacing that's not all saggy in the middle and wandering everywhere or just way too short. So what I do is if I have an idea that seems like it's going to make for a good book, I will write it down in my idea notebook and I'll let it sit for a while. And I'm getting messages on my phone and it's really distracting. Yeah, I will let it sit for a while. And one of the ways that I decide whether or not a story is worth pursuing is I will find that it keeps coming back to me and it keeps popping into my head and it keeps popping into my daydreams, or while I'm out walking my dog, it'll be what's running through my head. So I'll have little ideas along the way, like, hey, this would be cool if this happened, or what if the character was this kind of person, and what if the antagonist was this kind of person, and it'll be an idea that won't leave me alone. So what I do is I go back to the page in my idea notebook and I just write down things as they come, and I don't judge them. I don't go, oh, well, if I do this, then I can't do this other thing that I thought would be cool. I just write it all down. And then eventually it will seem like I have at least a main character who is interesting and imperfect, and that character will have challenges to face. The character will have motivations. He or she will want something, and there will be obstacles standing in the way of that. I will have a strong antagonist. This is something that I wasn't always great about back when I was writing stories and not finishing them and not publishing them. That was one of the big things that was always missing. You do want to have a strong antagonist. But in terms of turning the idea into a story, what I like to do, once I've gathered all of that preliminary stuff, is I will look at story structure. Depending on the kind of story you're writing, that can vary a bit. Right now, for my urban fantasy series, I'm using a combination of the story structure recommended in the book Story Engineering, and the author's name has escaped me right now. I will put that in the description for the video. That one I go to first, and that sort of breaks down the structure of a novel into 4 parts. which roughly equates to 4/4 of the story, and then certain beats that you want to hit in the story. Things like what your midpoint should look like, things like your inciting incident, and yada, yada, yada. And then I will also take a look at the beat sheet, the BS2 beat sheet from Save the Cat, which is actually a book about screenwriting, but it does give a lot of insight into story structure and what audiences expect out of stories. And it gives some amazing examples from movies that show that using a structure can result in just limitless different variations on and different stories. I highly recommend that one. It's a fast read, and it gives you a lot of really good insights. Story engineering is also excellent. It's got some really amazing information, but you kind of have to dig for it. But I do use both. In my bullet journal, I have a page for each that's just got the points and the beats and what they should look like in a story. So then I take what I have in my little idea notebook and I figure out what kind of a story I can build using or not using, you know, whatever seems to fit from there. I look at who is my main character, what does she want, how does she need to change over the course of the story, and what obstacles would be really, really horrible for her, because you do want to torture your characters a little bit. That makes for a good story. You don't want everything to be too easy for them. You don't want their challenges to be custom made so that they can just jump in there and, you know, do everything right. So that's sort of the basics of an outline. That won't give you every scene, but if you have those beats to aim for, then the story obviously doesn't write itself, but it gives you things to work toward. And then I will do a scene outline for what I think would make a cool story. And then I write the first draft and I find out how completely wrong I was. And not that my outlines make for bad stories. My first drafts they actually make for, you know, decent stories. But the thing with the first draft is that that's where I figure out how much better everything could be. My first draft shows me the flaws in my outline, and that's really where I find the story, is when I'm writing it out and I'm discovering my mistakes and I'm discovering places where I didn't think things through well enough and all that fun stuff. And that's where I find the theme and all that good stuff too. If you've seen an image floating around, it's Pixar's 22 Rules of Storytelling, and I do recommend looking that up because it's got some great ideas in there. You will find that one of them is that theme is important, but you're not going to find it until you've written the story. And I find that's pretty true. If I do a really solid outline, I can probably get a really good idea of what a story's theme will be, what the idea that drives the story is, what the meaning behind the story is. But I don't really usually find it until the end of that first draft. So, long story short, as usual, my cat's meowing at the front door. What was I saying? Oh yeah, long story short, I have the idea, I let the idea fester in my brain for a while, and I write down absolutely everything that occurs to me about it. I use beat sheets and, another example. Currently I'm writing a Beauty and the Beast story set in Illurion that's going to go out free to my newsletter subscribers. That's another way to find your story structure. If you are basing it on a fairy tale, or if you are basing it on the hero's journey or something like that, that's another thing that you can use instead of just story beats. I lost my train of thought again. Oh yeah, so I will fit it into the story structure or the beats or whatever, just to help me sort things out, help me get an idea of what my pacing's going to be like and where certain things should come into the story and when there should be twists and... Oh, hi kitten. Oh, here's another cat. What? Oh, he says Merry Christmas. This is Rorschach. I don't know if I've introduced him in a video. He's vicious, and he's about 20 weeks old, and he came from the SPCA, and he says hello. You see him a lot on my pen names Instagram. he's sort of her cat. Oh, distractions. Okay, so yes, have the idea, build more ideas into it, daydream on it, ponder on it, let it fester. Take those ideas and build a story around beats or whatever kind of story structure you think you want. I recommend at least knowing your end before you start, and probably knowing your midpoint, knowing what kind of a big reversal or realization or information is going to come into the story or whatever, just to have things to work toward. And then write the first draft, see where it takes you, see what the flaws are. For me, I tend to really find the story in revisions. The first draft is a good story. It doesn't become a great story until I start revising and discover all of the possibilities. Kelly, I hope that answers your question. If you have follow-up questions, if any of you have follow-up questions, let me know in the comments, and I will either try to answer there or do another video if it seems like we need that. And in the meantime, happy holidays to you guys. Merry Christmas. Happy whatever you may be celebrating. And I wish you all a wonderful, happy new year. I think 2016 was a rough year for a lot of us, some more than others. I hope 2017 is absolutely amazing for all of you guys. And that's it. I'll talk to you later. Bye.